I stand up for and am an advocate for the bloodstained men. I'm sure you've seen them on the side of the road, the guys in the white pants. Some of them wear cowboy hats, but they wear white pants with a big bloodstained crotch on their center of their pants. And people tend to make fun of them. They don't understand. So I reached out to the Bloodstained Men, and they totally sent me their spokesman, Harry, who is a totally fantabulous fellow, one of the nicest guys I think I have ever met since starting this podcast. And, we're going to kind of give you guys a rundown on an education of why being intact is better than being mutilated by a system that doesn't care about you. I've got Neptune with me.
Yeah, Harry Guiremand.
Oh, but I'm so excited to have you here tonight. I invited him to come tell you guys about something that I was educated about by my wife, and I hold very dear to my heart. You guys hear me give shout outs to talking about the Bloodstained Men and the positive things I think they're doing out there. And if you've been following me since early times, you see me even defending them and stuff when other people have out of line things to say because there's something to this, and it touched me in such a way that I can honestly say that my son is not circumcised because why would I do that knowing this, knowing all of what I know now? Like I just think that is ludicrous from where I stand. And I know a lot of people are like, whoa, what? And yes, I think it needed to come from the kind of people I learned it from, and that would be the Bloodstained Men. So Harry, if you don't mind.
Hello, hello, hello. My name is Harry Guiremand, and I'm spokesman for the Bloodstained Men and their friends. And we are a nonprofit human rights organization. And our purpose is to educate people about the harm of infant circumcision and hopefully drive it into extinction in America. The rest of the world does not do this to their baby boys. It's for in hospitals. It's not done in Europe, South America, most of Asia, most of Africa. It's not, it's just an anomaly that this continues in the US. Many places in the English speaking world used to do it and they've given it up. Australia stopped, New Zealand stopped, Canada has mostly stopped, the UK stopped, and the mainland of Europe never did it. And, China, Russia, they don't do this to their boys. So it's an anomaly that people somehow believe that half of the population is born needing corrective surgery. That's just insane. I mean, that's madness. That's a mass delusion that unfortunately is still ingrained in America. And our job is to try to dislodge that mass delusion and wake people up and say, your boy is fine the way he's born. There's nothing wrong with him. He doesn't need surgery when he's born. If he doesn't like his foreskin for some reason, which he that's not going to happen, but if it ever did, he could choose that for himself when he's old enough to make such a decision. You don't have to force it on him when he can't fight back. It's absolutely monstrous to
I've
force on somebody something they wouldn't choose for themselves.
absolutely, I've in times that I've touched about this, I've pointed out like the psychological aspects of it, and people are like, "Oh, they're a baby, they don't remember it." And I'm just like, "Do you not understand how trauma works? Like, of course they don't remember it. You know what I'm saying? Like, even, I this is going to be a little bit of a horror story for myself, but I was 7 years old when my parents finally decided to do it. My mom was
Mm.
pro well, my mom was pro, like, don't worry about it. And my dad was like, no. And I got a hernia. And while they were doing the hernia, they said that they needed to do that before I got an infection. And they let them do it. And I remember at 7 years old, standing in the hallway when they were trying to change my bandage, yelling at my parents about how much I hated them. And like, people are like, what? And I was just like, yeah. Dude, can you imagine having like you have very vivid memories of 7 years old, I promise you. Like
I'm
it
sorry that happened to you. It's horrible. It shouldn't happen to anyone.
No,
I
I
really,
agree.
it's heartbreaking. Every time I hear one of these stories, it's like anybody who has a heart, anybody who feels, who has any compassion, has any empathy, thinks about attacking a baby boy's or a young boy's for no good reason when they don't need surgery. If you have a heart, your heart is breaking. This shouldn't happen. And the fact that it happens 3,000 times a day in this country is absolutely disgusting beyond belief. It's one of the most horrific. When in the future, when this is all gone, people will say, "How? What were they thinking? How could this have even happened in a country where people are fairly educated? How did they fall for this bullshit?" But they did, and
Harry, I have to ask, and I have a personal reason for wanting to ask too, knowing that this is so commonplace in our country. Um, Full disclosure, um, my mother refused circumcision. I am uncircumcised. Uh, she flat out refused, and
good for her.
not many people know that. I have not discussed that openly with most people. But I have to ask because it was always my impression that most of the developed world did this. Uh, where did you come across? How did you find out that it was really only us, the U.S., in that context, that was still doing this?
Yeah, statistics are published, and it shows that the rate in the U.S. is um, very high compared to the rest of the developed world.
It's really an afterthought for me, being being that I have been uncircumcised, and I have flat out refused that it's brought some negative connotation uh, in intimate relationships with me, obviously.
Well,
So I kind of I keep this one close to the chest, but also in the back of my mind because I try not to think about it too much. Now that I understand what it is that you guys do, I definitely appreciate what you guys stand for because
oh, thank you. Yeah,
I happen to I agree with this wholeheartedly. I did not know that it was. I did not realize the scope that there was a group that was actively against this. Uh,
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
something that I personally happen to be against. I feel like it is child mutilation. It's been my impression my entire life, and I am going to be 35 years old this year, that it is commonplace across the developed world. And
right.
to hear that it's almost exclusive to the U.S. is that's depressing.
Thank you for sharing that, Tristan. About and we usually say intact instead of uncircumcised because it sounds when you say uncircumcised, this is part of the brainwashing of circumcision.
Yeah,
It sounds like you should be circumcised. Well, what's wrong?
yeah,
Why are
for
you
real.
meth?
Where the hell did this come from?
Well, nobody really knows for sure where it originated. Because we know, or at least historians have said that when the Jews were or slaves in Egypt, the Egyptians marked their slaves with circumcision, and somehow that carried over into Judaism. Some people say. I don't know what the truth is. It's so far in the past, I don't think anybody knows for sure where it started. It's just, there's a lot of speculation, but I don't think anybody can say for sure. So, and anyway, it carried it somehow. The English speaking world picked it up, but the English speaking world adopted circumcision, and it became sort of a mark of the upper class. And so, of course, once the upper class does something, everyone else imitates it. So then it
Sure.
became widespread throughout the English speaking world. And then they one by one just abandoned it.